Hey guys, Mark here, and it's time to do something that I'm honestly surprised more artists in my whole circle of the internet don't do. I guess there's this kind of pervading attitude that a lot of artists have, where like music critics are like the enemy of artistry and are stifling, the vision for whatever you have or some nonsense like that. Now personally, before I kind of went all in on the fully involved thing, I actually was a music critic for a handful of years, especially on my what used to be Spin It Reviews, now Mad Sounds channel. I try to do some stuff related to that here and there, but I'm kind of going all in on this right now. And I have a lot of friends in this whole YouTube music reviewing community, a couple of which talked about learned helplessness, but I was kind of hoping to make a bit more of a foothold, especially since, to me anyway, it's a much more palatable record that you can listen to outside the context of, oh yeah, this project a friend of mine did that I should probably toss a bone. In fact, on my Twitter a couple days before Insolence came out, I was basically going on this big thread about how if one of you guys talks about Insolence on your channel, be honest, and more importantly, be insightful. Because the thing is, I have people here and there working around me, like there's Daniel, the producer, Tim, and Powers, who came in to do their own parts, but for the most part, because this is kind of a solo project, it's a very insular process, and because of that, I can always use more perspective. What my strengths are, how well I'm utilizing them on this particular project. Do the lyrical themes I'm talking about make sense? Do they ring hollow? I think sugarcoating it is the absolute worst thing that can happen to an artist, honestly. So with that all said, the first review to come out so far was earlier this week. JG, aka MUSICFOREVER, he was the first to talk about learned helplessness as well. Really appreciate his support. Gave that a pretty positive review. Honestly, probably a higher score than I give that nowadays. And I'm hoping that with this review of Insolence, that he can really set this off on the right track. And I'm going to press play right now.
Hello everyone, I'm JG and welcome back to Music Forever.
Awesome. I appreciate the font.
Alright folks, Fully Involved is the music project of Mark of the Mad Sounds podcast, a podcast here on YouTube or on iTunes. I believe you could also listen to it.
Yes, you
there.
can. He's promoting that channel more than I am in 2018, so good on you there.
I reviewed his debut album back in last August. I really enjoyed that album. I thought it was a pretty solid project over. But this new EP here, I have to say that I'm thoroughly enjoying it. It's a very short EP, only a little over 10 minutes in length. But
yeah, I mean, how I've been wanting to plug it to people is that basically I said it was 17 fidget spins on the last one, and I'd like to think that Insolence basically take your favorite SpongeBob episode. So if you want like 4 sweet victories in a row, there you go.
Production here on this new EP is very much improved over the last album, which did, I felt like the production on that album kind of worked, just the kind of do-it-yourself sort of, I feel, attitude that album kind of had going for it.
Yeah, it's weird looking back on the production of that record, because I am very proud of it, and we definitely did what we could, but at the same time, it was recorded in this tiny-ass church, with both of us having no experience working on like a full-length record. That record's had a pretty consistent 6 out of 10 consensus, with them basically saying that the songs are solid, but sonically it makes it a little less accessible than it might have been otherwise, which I totally understand.
I'm not quite sure how long that sort of thing would have lasted with continued releases, so I do think it's a good thing that this EP just has an increased production value.
Definitely.
To it.
I knew that if I was going to keep going with this, I would have at least had to go to a place that was an actual studio. And
it manages to tell a very interesting, not necessarily story, but it delivers a lot of interesting takes on particular concept.
Yeah, that is basically what I was going for. Like, not necessarily following a story over the course of it, but more like the 4 corners of one topic, that being chronic illness or specifically type 1 diabetes.
In particular, at least you have your health, kind of talking about these other people who don't have to deal with that, and as a result that they kind of just don't really care about this person in their illness that they really don't have much control over. Because everyone, at least they have their health, they're fine as far as they know. They really don't care about anyone else, and that anger is just released here on this track.
Yay, someone's interpreting it how I intended. Not that I necessarily want that to be the case all the time, but at the same time, it is nice to know that for the weird kind of metaphors that I can go on, that it is coming through to people in the way that I'm hoping.
The closing title track here is also another very interesting one. Politicians think people like that while they continue to, live their, perfectly okay lives. But
pretty much same comments as with the last track. Nothing really to add here. I wonder how transformative this video is actually going to be. If this falls under fair use, am I going to be sued by YouTube for talking about somebody who talks about my own music? Honestly, wouldn't be surprised. Have you seen that crap going on with Universal? Sorry, I've been taking a digital copyright course in a college class, and it's going to lead me down a conspiracy rabbit hole. Moving on.
Pretty cool guitar solo, which just has a very grand feel to it.
Shout out to Powers one time.
Mark on the vocals just kind of, lets loose with some very crazy, aggressive vocals following the solo that I really like.
Thank God for Melodyne.
While they are angry, they have a lot more going for them than just straightforward anger. I mean, there are some tracks on here that do that, but then there's also ones that, are a bit more experimental, I guess you could say, with their structure.
For sure. The fan favorite on Learned Helplessness did seem to be Come Out Right, and I feel like for the two tracks that weren't pre-released for Insolence, 48-4 and the title track, people that liked the weird structuring on Come Out Right, it's definitely going to scratch an itch for them. So yeah, I'm glad that kind of came through on this.
10 to You is one of the least aggressive on this thing, which kind of makes sense.
Oh yeah, it's just straight Weezer Green album worship, like totally sugary, ironic, I know, thematically, but there you go.
I feel like Mark's vocals got a lot better here. And while I did like them in the context of the last album where it was a bit more, raw, here with the improved production and all that going on, I think it makes a bit more sense. He's kind of, I did mention this in my review of the first album back when that dropped, but I feel like lots of more modern pop punk and, stuff that falls under a similar genre to that ends up being very generic for me. I don't really care for it all too much.
Yes, and this is actually something I was talking about with a friend earlier today. Shout out to David one time. He'll probably be watching this. There's a lot of kind of middle-of-the-road disposable punk rock and pop punk out there that just doesn't really add anything to what was already done 20, 30 years ago. And with the modern pop punk stuff especially, like, it doesn't have the heaviness of straight punk, but it doesn't have cohesive melodies. It's just very rambly and doesn't really have anything that sticks in the mind. So with this, I kind of want to call back to like that perfect mix where it is kind of poppy, it is kind of sugary. There are melodies you can grab onto without it being some kind of like All-Time Low clone or something like that, which I don't necessarily have a problem with All-Time Low outside that last album. But you get the idea, just good melodic but crunchy punk leaning adjacent type stuff. And I think it worked out here. I'm glad you do too. Moving on.
And lots of times it just feels very overproduced. So to hear material that's not...
I'm glad I paused it right before he said the exact same point that I was going to make. Good job, Mark. Maybe wait till the end of the sentence, you piece of shit.
Also doesn't very sound generic, has a bit of anger to it as well.
I'll put that on the shrink wrap. Doesn't sound generic. JG 2018.
Sort of raw production to it, but it is a production that is improved over the last project.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like someone listening to it could probably tell that, wouldn't be surprised that it was recorded from someone's house, but at the same time, it's palatable. Unlike with Learned Helplessness, you can listen to it outside the context of being this DIY Bandcamp project and still take it in as something. I don't want to say good because I don't want to toot my own horn too much here because I'm already kind of doing that with a lot of what I'm doing in this video already, but I'm digging my hole here. I'm going to shut up.
Listening to this thing, I feel like it's more cohesive than the album we got a few months ago.
For sure.
That's definitely a good thing going forward, especially considering that on the Bandcamp page it also said that there's going to be a second EP released sometime this year. I'm really excited to hear that after hearing this thing.
Yeah, and I should probably say that EP is also going to have its own kind of sonic quality to it. It's going to be a little bit softer, a little more singer-songwritery, maybe a little bit more textured instrumentally. I haven't really finished figuring out the entire thing. I have all the core songs written, but yeah, from here on out, before I move on to a full-length album again, I'm definitely going to see if it can have some kind of cohesive vibe to it, without necessarily making all the songs blur together. I think I struck a good balance on this, and I'm hoping to continue that going forward.
Or if you enjoyed the debut album that was released a few months ago, if you enjoyed that, you're definitely going to like this because it's an improvement on that in pretty much every way.
Definitely. I definitely see myself being a little less self-deprecating when I'm promoting this thing, being a little more shameless, because I do think that maybe some of the people I was promoting Learned Helplessness to, they got deterred by how, again, sonically kind of amateurish it was, at least compared to something like this. So yeah, I do see Insolence, attracting a higher ratio of people that listen to it than with the last one. I realize I'm kind of bagging on Learned Helplessness a lot here. I'm still proud of it, but you get the idea.
So yeah, that's really all I have to say about this EP. If you guys enjoyed this video, I greatly appreciate if you leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss
I will do just that.
out on future album reviews and other music-related content. And make sure to follow me on all my social medias linked in the description.
You guys should do that.
And also give this EP a purchase on the Bandcamp page, which is also going to be linked in the description down below.
Please do that.
Thanks for watching, guys, and stay golden.
Yeah, I'd say do that too. This is a really good note to start this album review reaction series on. Hopefully I don't repeat too many of my points from review to review. I don't think that will be too much of a problem, especially because there was kind of a good 6 to 8 range with Learned Helplessness reviews. Obviously, each music critic does have their own perspective they're going to come at it from, even if they're talking about the same music. Hopefully, I'd like to think that there's enough going on with this EP, whether in a positive or negative way, you take that as you will, that people are going to have their own interpretations and have their own takeaways. I hope you guys enjoy what I'm doing here. Again, I'm surprised the more artists don't do this kind of thing. The review in total is just under 10 minutes long, and I'd recommend watching the whole thing to get more of a wide perspective on his. I honestly just kind of use the clips that I'm bouncing off of with my own commentary. I will say, it'll get interesting once again to the more critical stuff, but this is a nice kind of easy, positive note to start off on, so I appreciate that. Watch his review, subscribe to his channel, he's doing good stuff. He puts out a lot of videos that I think could use more views. And obviously, if you've gone this far in the video and haven't listened to Insolence, I would definitely recommend doing that if you want to know what the hell these people are talking about. It's just $2 on Bandcamp, or you can stream it on Spotify, YouTube, all those places. I know that a couple other music reviewers in the same circle are gonna be talking about Insolence in the coming days, so hopefully I can get more of these out to you guys then. And that's about it. Later.
I will tell to you that I know